Race 4 of the BMW IBSF two-man bobsleigh World Cup. We're in snowy Innsbruck in Austria. After a snowy morning for the women's race, it looks as though the sky is finally starting to lift a little as we get ready for our two-man encounter. Hello everybody, I'm Martin Haven back with you, and alongside me, delighted to welcome back Anne van Nieuwenhuis. Tough day for you on this track. You had a really good first run, but broken steering ruled you out of the race. What are we going to see in this two-man race? Where are the key issues on this Innsbruck track, Anne?
Well, obviously the start is going to be a big factor here. It's a lot quieter and slower than the track we had last week in La Plagne. So the start is a bit shorter here. You need to be in and down before you hit that curve 1. It's all very flat and slow. You need to be soft on the steering. You don't want to wave too much in those 2 and 3 curves. Try to get a little bit of the shortcuts in the straightaways. Try to get diagonally to cover as less distance as possible. And here we're heading in the upper labyrinth of the track, 4, 5, 6. It's all fairly slow. You don't want to be driving too much. You just want to control it. And then you head into the Kreisel. A little bit of an easier Kreisel compared to Altenburg or Königssee, not so much pressure, and then you pick up a little speed. This is an important part of the track. It's the only trickier curve in this track. You want to get that straightaway, nice and straight, no skids, and then in the lower part of the labyrinths, 11, 12, 13, just everything, control it, but don't steer too much. It's really an exercise of getting through the run without steering too much.
And then the most dangerous part of the track is the finish as you come into this tunnel under the ski piste. And we've seen a lot of sleds going flying through there. Francesco Friedrich is our World Cup leader. He's also our two-man world champion, Olympic champion, World Cup champion after a perfect season last year. Hasn't been quite perfect this year. He's only won 2 of the 3 races, so, you know, really lost it completely. But the question here in Innsbruck is, who's going to be second? Because if we look at the little piece of paper we've got in front of us, not since the pre-Sochi race here, when Stephen Holcomb and Steve Langton won, has anybody other than Francesco Friedrich and Torsten Margus won. So that's 4 World Cups and a World Championships in two-man. And he's still the guy everybody has to beat, right?
Those are impressive numbers, and he is still the guy to beat. He's been taking it a little bit easy in training, didn't push very fast on the last training day, and that's what he likes to do. He doesn't like to show his cards. Takes it nice and easy, doesn't use his best runners, doesn't use the really quick lines. He doesn't like to show how he does it here, but I'm sure once the race starts he'll be very impressive and he'll be the man to beat.
We just saw Oskars Kibermanis warming up there. He is one of how many drivers you think are going to have to sit in the sled because of injury?
Well, 4 of them were sitting in training. Kibermanis was one of them. Obviously we saw in the foreman race in La Plagne that he couldn't push as far in the second heat, so he must have had some kind of injury after the first heat. I don't know if he'll be able to get a couple of steps in today or if he will actually need to sit in.
Well, first up, we'll find out how Dmitri Popov is doing. He was sitting in training, and both Austrian drivers also struggling for fitness, may well be sitting in. Lamin Dean, we hear, has been disqualified, so we have 25 sleds in our starting draw. And we get our two-man bobsleigh World Cup underway in Innsbruck with Dmitri Popov and Mikhail Mordasov. 6th World Cup race for Popov. He did race here last year, 24th, and looks like he is feeling fit enough at least for one push start.
Well, we also had a day off yesterday, so that can change a lot in your feeling. A little wave there in the middle of 2, and that's where you just want to be very soft on the steering. You want to control it, but he's letting it very free at the moment. A bit of a high line there in 4 as well, and early out of 5 going into 6. Ooh, a little unstable there in the straightaway heading into Kreisel.
Popov knows the track. He's raced here in Europa Cup as well as last year's World Cup race.
Looks like a clean exit, but as soon as you touch that wall, it's just very risky to break into a skid.
117, 118 at the bottom, 119. That's as fast as the women's sleds were going at the end of their run, so 53.06 slide for Dmitri Popov. And here's the danger in the braking straight. It's not a straight, it's a curve. And it's in a tiny, narrow tunnel, and with both the driver and the brakeman sitting up, particularly in a 4-man with all the bodies up, any kind of tipping motion, we do see crashes in there. And Popov just looking at his right thigh there.
He's coming out of the sled with a lot of pain.
Yeah.
Here getting in the middle of curve 1.
Well, he's clearly trying to protect that during training, but yeah, look, it's maybe actually a hip flexor or something, but he gave it everything he had, because the start here is just so much a bigger part of the race than any other track.
Exactly. Just because the track is relatively easy, it is very hard to pick up the speed along the track. Like, not a lot of pilots make mistakes, so it's just your start speed, your start time that will set you up for the rest of the run, and it's hard to catch up on people.
Patrick Baumgartner of Italy, now 25, 8 years ago won Youth Olympic gold in this track in boys bobsleigh. Youth Olympic bobsleigh starts in St. Moritz tomorrow morning. This is his 12th World Cup start, 4th two-man racing World Cup for brakeman Constantino Ugi.
Oh, and a little struggle there to get in and down. 5:37. And a very long line on curve 1. Took a little bit too much of that curve to be really faster.
Constantino Ugi, more of a 4-man brakeman. His last 2-man race was here in 2015.
Wow.
I know.
And he has been driving some Europa Cup races, so he's transitioning into a pilot as well. But since he's such a good brakeman for the Italian team, he's back on the back of the sled of Patrick Baumgartner.
100th behind our current leader, Dmitri Popov.
And a very nice exit out of Kreisel. Looking clean there as well. A little late going into 10, but a nice high line.
Didn't race here in last year's World Cup, Baumgartner, but he has got plenty of experience on this track from his very earliest days. So 1900s up, 52.87, and that may well see him into the second heat.
It is such a tricky part.
Oh,
yep,
wow.
and takes the same hit I did.
Yeah, not quite as
I tried
solid.
to avoid the wall. My steering just broke, so I couldn't avoid the wall anymore.
You have to really hit the brakes hard immediately after the finish line, and then not in the last corner.
Exactly.
But it's so hard.
Nice high line there, and then gradually takes it out.
Lots of height, really important there, isn't it? And also in corner 10, big height really helps with the speed.
Yeah, it's a bit of a dilemma. You want to be high to get the speed, but you don't want to be too high to cover too much distance. So you see different lines from different countries. So.
Next up is Croatia, with Drazen Silic making his 9th World Cup start as a 2-man driver. Alexander Krasniqi behind him, his 6th 2-man start. And Drazen, before last year's race when he finished 25th, his previous 2-man was in the 2016 Worlds. So 2 seasons away from this track. And they were not expecting to be racing in the second half of this season. They didn't do North America, but the federation got the budget together, and suddenly, oh, here we are, back in the seat again.
A little bit of a lift of the sled when they hit it, and that's just energy going up instead of forward. 5:48. Since Drazen is only doing 2-man, he only gets 4 runs in training too, not 6 runs like the other drivers, the guys get.
And he hadn't driven a sled before they came back in Winterberg, so it's a long way away after last year's World Championships.
A tiny drift there from 6 to 7 in that straightaway. Ooh, high, and dives it out a little too soon and has the pressure coming back up at the end of Kreisel.
At least it didn't roll him off the exit.
Lower line in curve 9, but doesn't have a horrible exit. And a little late there, but controls it. The brakeman was pretty high up there at the end of 13.
And there's the sheets of ice as they hit the brakes nice and quickly. Then you come up through this steep uphill right-hander, and then you have to get on the brakes again. If you've got the brakes digging in and lifting the runners off the ice, that's where the crashes happen. 53.97. I'm not sure that is going to be enough to put them into the second heat. That's a 10th behind Dmitri Popov.
And here he goes high up in the first part of Kreisel, stays high, and then it just falls off and has some of the pressure to put him high again at the end. And that he's on the right wall, just brushing it, going into curve 8.
So a lot of the women's sleds keeping that high line through the Kreisel. Well, if nothing else, these guys have a lot of fun together.
They have the most fun. Very relaxed atmosphere when they're around.
A tell you what, talk about having fun. This man is having fun. 23-year-old American driver Hunter Church has never raced outside the US before in his career, so this is all brand new territory for Hunter. 6 World Cup start for him. 2 fifth places in Lake Placid and 12th last week on his first ever race in La Plana. Josh Williamson, 23-year-old brakeman, his 5th two-man World Cup start. His first was here with Justin Olsen in last year's race. So Hunter Church, first time out here in Innsbruck, and we'll be saying that at every racetrack now for the rest of the season, except for St. Moritz, where he did Junior Worlds. That's the only European track he's ever raced on before.
Wow.
Jimmy Reed behind, I'm sure will be in the 4-man sled again.
And it's taking a long time for the light to turn green.
Yeah, we had this in the women's race a couple of times. New track crew, they're just not used to getting their skates on when it comes to cleaning the track.
Mm-hmm. And since it's a snow race, there is a sweeping protocol. So the straightaways get swept every 3 sleds, so they're number 4. So that's why it took such a long time, probably. Ooh, little drift there going into 1 and just avoids the wall going into, but a nice shortcut there.
5:29 getaway, that's comfortably the quickest we've seen so far. And Hunter Church has really shown that he's not just a one-trick pony on North American tracks. He actually is learning all of these tracks very quickly.
A little late entrance there, but a good control. Goes early into Treichl. And a very nice exit there. Nice and straight going into 8. High line there. Just takes a tap and the tiny drift that I was talking about earlier.
Nice early height, lands it well off 10.
A little late there out of 11.
Labyrinth is so quick, the transitions corner to corner, across the line, 1,200 meters of ice, just 52 seconds. We were taking a minute and 2 seconds almost last week, so it's such a different experience.
It is very short.
52.38 run. The track record here from 2017, 51.25, so we're a second outside that.
And there he had a very high line in curve 4, takes the hit before going into 5. And here we see the exit of curve 9. A little high late there, and that's why he takes a tap in the straightaway and breaks into the skid eventually.
See the exit of the corner there, it doesn't come smoothly down, it sort of drops off a little step, and you really feel that in the sled, I'm sure.
Yeah, the straightaway, it's very flat in the beginning and then just drops away, and if your sled is not 100% stable there, if you take the hit just on that point, it just breaks into a skid.
So 4 sleds down, the 5th on ice in his 63rd World Cup start. 46 on the, 4 on the brakes beforehand, so his 59th as a driver, Justin Kripps. Now, Kripps was just off the podium last year here in 4th place in the 2-man race. His best here, though, silver medal in the year before with Jesse Lumsden behind him. Still can't get in. Well, luckily it's a very non-damaging physically first couple of corners, but they are very close to the end of the start ramp.
Oh, and you saw his push bar dragging along the entrance of curve 2, and that's gonna cost him so much speed. Wow, it is so hard when one leg is in to push yourself up again to get the other one in, and oh, this is gonna cost him so much.
It's not so much the lost momentum at the start, it's clattering off the wall in 1 and sweeping up through 2 that really robs you of what little speed you've got. And normally, as you say, if you lose a tenth at the top, it's 3 tenths at the bottom. Here the track is so short it might not be quite that much, but the races are always so tight.
And it had a very clean run after that. To only be 1500s behind with that mishap at the start, that's actually a really great run.
The total lack of reaction there from Lyndon Rush and Todd Hayes tells you everything that was going through their heads. Where is that going to leave him? Well, Justin Kripps was hoping to aim for the medals here, but that's going to be really tough, isn't it? Really tough.
Yeah, this is not going to be enough.
So his foot slips on the wrong side of the cowl, and now that really splits the difference. He's trying to get himself back in. So he has to lever himself up on the push bar, but again, he's not looking down. His foot's still not getting into the sled.
Oh, then he has to push up again.
Yeah. Trying to stand up on the tiny little backrest that you have, which is, I don't know, what, sort of 5-10 centimeters even, just enough to press your butt against.
And then here his foot gets caught again.
Yeah.
Oh.
It could have been worse, but only if he hadn't got in at all.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what Ben Coakwell, the brakeman, would have done then. If Justin had missed with his left foot, then he would have been in a world of hurt. Second World Cup start for Germany's Richard Oelsner gets away immediately, the 25-year-old from Dresden. He's got to be a Schneider behind him.
5:17, great getaway.
Yeah, Oelsner is super strong, very quick indeed. Multiple junior world champion in 2-man and 4-man. He is our Europa Cup champion as well, knows this track inside out.
Yeah, and we saw that with the transition from curve 2 to 3, had a perfect diagonal, just shortcutting the track, not covering too much distance. Little rattle there, but controls it going into Kreisel.
We saw in the women's race, rookie Lara Nolte again in the medals, her 3rd World Cup start, her 3rd medal. She took silver today. And Oelsner is definitely capable of finishing on the podium here. This is a great looking run.
A little late there, but doesn't drive too much. That what we'll see many pilots do.
Speed at the bottom is good, 122.4. That's very quick.
You can see the brakeman pop up as soon as he could to get a hand on the brakes before heading into that finish curve 15.
Yeah, 4th World Cup for Tobias Schneider. His first 2 were with Christoph Hafer last season. Now he is with Richard Oelsner.
And here the exit of 9. High there, but stays right with the pressure.
And Oelsner won the last Europa Cup race here, which was January 2019. The Europa Cup comes next week to Eagles.
Takes the hit, but stays nice and straight early into curve 10.
He's got a big smile on his face. He's loving life as much as Hunter Church right now, Richard Oelsner. So 5 down and 20 to go. Richard Oelsner is our race leader from Hunter Church and Justin Kripps. Rudy Rinaldi of Monaco is our 7th starter in the 2-man bobsleigh World Cup. Race 4 of the series here in Innsbruck in Austria, the double Olympic venue. Martin Haven and Van Nieuwenhuis watching the action with you as our 2 26-year-olds, Rudy and his brakeman Boris Vian, get ready to take their start. The blowers and the brooms will be up and down the track, clearing the snow out of the grooves. It's actually in the grooves probably as much as anywhere else that it's going to slow the sled down.
Definitely. And it's very different circumstances than what we had in training. All training week we had blue sky, bright sun. It was nice and cold, very fast conditions. And today, yeah, snow is coming down. It's not what we prefer as a driver or as a brakeman. Yeah, we wanna be fast in the push and fast down the run, and with snow it's just that much harder.
Now normally the track is not seen being swept, it's normally swept the minute the preceding sled leaves. But here it's taking a little longer, which means the sled is staying on the ice, which is cooling the runners down, and that all helps to slow the sled. The warmer your runners are, legally, the less friction they will create on the ice. So ready to go now for Rudy Rinaldi and Boris Vian. Boris Vian's 22nd 2-man World Cup start. He began his career with Patrice Savelle. And it's also the 22nd start for his driver in the 2-man World Cup, Rudy Rinaldi.
You can see he's just steaming.
Yeah.
It's very cold outside and they're all warmed up, hyped up.
They're like racehorses.
5:27 and a very nice climb from curve 1 to 2. A little bit of a wave there in the middle of curve 2. And a nice control there in 3.
Rudy finished 13th here last year, 23rd the year before, but 13th the year before that. So
okay.
Up and down.
Well, this track, it's very close and it all depends on the start. So if he was injured 1 year, it can make a big difference.
I have a feeling you might well have been doing a couple of races sitting in a couple of seasons ago.
Yeah.
Now you mention that. Not a bad looking run. Again, big height in 10, lands it nicely.
And that's looking very nice in the labyrinths. You can see the fog coming back a little bit.
And that's not necessarily going to change visibility because the sight lines are so short on this track, but it changes the humidity.
Oh, definitely.
And that might see the track starting to frost up a little later in the run.
No problems on the brakes there.
Yeah, Big Boris hauling on the handles. I mean, a lot of the brakemen saying you basically have to have your hands on the handles halfway through the lower labyrinth, but then you're trying to hold yourself in the sled and not flop around, so
yes.
It's a tough balance.
Yeah, a lot of brakemen try to get the handles in curve 14, but sometimes you take the hit on the finish line and then it hurts a lot when they don't have the handles there. Coming out of 9, and like a lot of people taking tab there, but it sets him up nicely to go early into 10 and have a nice high line to take all the speed you can get getting out of 10.
So Rudy Rinaldi of Monaco lies in 3rd place, Hunter Church 2nd, Richard Oelsner still our leader. First heat of 2 here in Innsbruck in this 2-man bobsleigh World Cup. And the distinctive livery of Korea's Yun-jong won next at the line, 10th place in last year's race. This is World Cup start number 46 of his career, former World Cup champion. 2 wins among his 6 2-man medals.
Oh, a little drift there. Oh, it just avoids it. Very early entrance into curve 1. He stays on the right wall, going from 2 to 3. And there as well on the right wall, which means you're going later and you will get more height into 4, and you need to steer harder to control it there.
And so many sleds getting tapped away there, just where the loose start comes in on the driver's left.
Yeah.
And this track is totally different this year. I mean, the concrete layout is the same, but the way the ice is makes it a different track to drive.
There's a lot more ice in the entrances and in the exits of the curves, and it's very different steering than other years. A different track crew just means different ice.
16 hundredths of a second back and 2/10 back of the line. So Richard Oelsner leads the Olympic silver medalist in 2-man by 2/10 of a second.
And goes up high, but avoids going on the rubber.
Yeah, Margot Bosch went off twice there onto the rubber in the French crew.
It is very hard, especially we've seen it in training. Like everyone in a BTC sled has a lot of problems slowing the sled down in the finish. And here you can see him the runners they're on the take on of curve 1 really early, and it pushes him down a little bit, but he controls it. And here you can see the height in curve 4, and then just brushing the wall before going into 5. You want to be on the right side there, but you want to avoid the hit.
Well, there's Yun-jong and Youngwo Seo, his long-time brakeman. Well, I wonder who's coming up next. Lots of maroon and white for Latvia's Oskars Kibermanis, bronze medalist here in the race last year.
Well, no push bar, and he's going in the sled.
And that means that Martis Miknis is really going to have to heft this off. So the driver is ready at least for turn 1, but Miknis doing all the donkey work. Kibermanis milking it.
He's a funny guy.
He is.
565. That's actually very impressive to push.
That is.
Like their sleds is 170 empty. I'm pretty sure Kibermanis is around 100 kilos, so that's a 270 kilo sled pushing alone. That's impressive.
Yeah, absolutely right. Luckily, Martis Miknis had his head down there. I'm not sure he's going to be super impressed with his driver doing the selfie poses while he's busy humping the sled off the line.
And he drifts out of Kreisel, was looking very nice until that point, and has a little trouble controlling it there. Doesn't want to take the hit on the left side like we've seen so many people do, and it was more driving than should be necessary.
Second back, he's behind Dmitri Popov. May not make the second heat. In fact, he finishes, 1.1 seconds back.
He's half a second back on start, so that's as good as drive as we've seen from other people.
And people at home might be thinking, well, why on earth is he bothering? If he can't compete at the start on this track where the start is not quite everything, but very nearly, why is he bothering? Because he will get points for finishing, and that makes a difference at the end of the year.
Exactly, and that's important for his start draw and start number in World Championships, so he needs all the points he can get.
And of course, every time you drive any track, you learn something.
Yeah.
You learn nothing by sitting in the hotel thinking, oh, I wish I was fitter.
Yeah.
So
Coming out of 9, he had to drift there, and well, at least he had fun.
At least he had fun, and somebody's got some good photos. 60th World Cup start for Francesco Friedrich. 24 wins, 39 medals. In the World Cup alone, multiple World Championships, Junior World Championships, Olympic golds, you name it, he's done it, he's won it. His collection of medals must exceed almost anybody's in the sport up until now. And as we said, a 5-time straight winner, including the 2016 Worlds on this track, and every time with Torsten Margis, which is not just a testament to how good Friedrich is, but to how fit Margis has remained for the big events.
Yeah, and for a lot of years and a lot of races, he's been the #1 brakeman. We've seen Alex Schuler doing really well on the back of Francesco's sled, but you know, they're a winning combination, Francesco and Torsten.
27th World Cup for Torsten Margis, from which 15 wins and 4 silver medals. 19 medals out of 27 starts as a brakeman.
5:14 and great speed going out of that curve 1.
And listen, this track, you're going to have to kill Friedrich at the start to stand any chance.
Yeah, he was a little high there at the end of 4 and takes the hit going into 5. But this is looking very nice and smooth. High there. And then a gradual drive out of Kreisel. Nice and early going into curve 8. And this is as good as it gets. Really great straightaway there.
He's changed his driving style totally. Last week in La Plana, fast and loose, hit everything, but whoa, skidding at the bottom. Maybe he's carrying even more speed than he was used to in training. 1:21.1, well, 1:22.4 from Richard Oelsner was the fastest, so he's 1600s ahead of Oelsner. And what did Oelsner start? 5:17, 300s faster at the start, Friedrich and Margis. They know they're under pressure from their teammates, and the double winner from the last 2 years in the women's race, Stephanie Schneider, skidded out of the medals in the race this morning.
And here, that's one mistake he made in the track, coming out of curve 4, and then here he takes the hit going into curve 11, which pushes him away and makes it late height in 11, and then needs to control it more in 12 and 13 because he's getting late.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and that's where the reflexes, the instinct, and all the years on ice come in. Francesco Friedrich saves it. He leads by 1600s from Richard Oelsner, and Yun-jong of Korea in 3rd. Our first 10 sleds of 25 down in Innsbruck, Austria. This is race 4 of the 2-man bobsleigh World Cup. Martin Haven and Belgian driver Anne van Nieuwenhuis watching the action. 4th in our World Cup standings in his 2nd year in the World Cup, his 3rd year as a bobsledder is Switzerland's Michael Vogt. Bronze medal last week in La Plana, France. Now what can they produce? Change of brakeman. It's not Sandro Michel, it is Cyril Bieri on the back, one of the real Swiss veterans.
Wow, 5:16.
Wow. That is astonishing.
That is a great start. Oh, and just touches the wall there coming out of curve 2. Cuts it a little bit too sharp.
Well, Vogt has only been driving for 2 years. He's raced here twice, once in Europa Cup, once last year in World Cup.
And that are great lines in the upper labyrinth. Just skids out of 6 there. It's gonna cost him some speed. And dives it out of Kreisel with a little bit of ride pressure going late into curve 8.
This is still a top 3 run. He's not in front of Richard Oelsner.
Lower line around curve 9, but a good control in the straightaway. A little late there as well.
Last Swiss to take a medal on this track was Beat Hefti in 2014.
Oh, it was
52.29.
Clemens Bracher.
Clemens Bracher, yeah, no, sorry, you're right. 2 years ago, he got the European silver medal. With Mikko Kłonen. Kwonen's now driving as well, so I think we might see him possibly in St. Moritz.
Yeah, he'll be the Swiss #2 driver in St. Moritz. They're driving Europa Cup in Sigulda at the moment.
Yeah. So Michael Vogt. Yeah, Beat Hefti had a run of 4 straight wins.
Just comes out of 2 a little bit too sharp and takes the hit, and then here we see him coming out of curve 6 a little bit too long on there, and the back end gets caught on the wipe, and that's why it's sliding away from him. And then coming out of 9, taking the tap, and then drifting to the early entrance of 10, and just hits there again.
Bert Hefty had 4 wins. He had medals in 8 straight seasons on this track. That's how good a start he was. Waiting for the sweeping to be completed, Romain Heinrich and Dorian Hauteville from France. 34th World Cup start for Romain, his 16th as a driver. And his brakeman making his 12th two-man World Cup start. Former soccer player from Lyon, Dorian Hauteville. This is Romain's 3rd race on this track as a driver. Finished 8th place in last year's race in the World Cup.
5:18, wow.
That's a big start as well.
That's a big start from them.
So the leader started 5:14. They're 400s behind Friedrich at the start.
And it's looking very controlled at the top of the track, but already losing some time. So I don't know what happened there, because they were quite close at the start, but already 20 hundredths up in Kreisel.
Well, when you're not seeing mistakes, it doesn't mean that they're not there, but you tend to then think, okay, maybe they've just gone with a slight runner choice mistake here.
Or he did a lot of driving to control the good lines that we saw. But now he's keeping good speed, not losing a lot of time. Clean lines, a little bit high there, but dives it out.
121.2, that's the same speed as we saw. Very happy Bruno Robert.
Just 100 in front of the Swiss sled we just saw.
Very similar speed as well to our race leader. Dorian Hauteville, you do not want to get run over by your own sled.
Well, they had some trouble in the first training stopping the sled as well. They were far up on the rubber, so they took out the brakes. They were hammering it and trying to fix to get more grip on the braking stretch, and looks like he did a better job there. Coming out of 9, a little bit high there at the end, and then takes the hit like we've seen a lot of sleds do. You can see it on the ice that a lot of people take that hit. But nice and straight early into 10. Good looking run. Good looking run. 3rd place of the line for Romain Heinrich, 100th ahead of Michael Vogt. Youngsters are really stirring the pot here. And here's another man who might do, Czech Republic's Dominik Dvorak, with his brakeman, 30-year-old physio Jakub Nošek. 25th World Cup start for Dvorak. He started 2 as a brakeman in 2-man. Much more familiar as a 4-man brakeman with Jan Verber early in his career. And I think they're looking to get a really great result on this track. They've been pushing really fast all season, previous seasons as well. So I think this is the place for them to do really well. Last year he was 5th, the year before 12th, the year before that he was 6th. So again, consistency is so hard here because the races are so often decided by 100th here and 100th there. Well, I don't know the circumstances of that race. I don't know if it was a snow race that might have switched things up. Yeah, or just, I mean, one tiny error can make 500ths a 10th difference, and that can cost you 6 places. It can make a big difference. Yeah. Oh, no times yet. 5:19 for the start we're being given. Okay. So it's not coming up on the screen, but it is on our timing screen. So 500ths behind Francesco Friedrich. And that's one of the advantages that Dvorak and his crews have, is they start so strongly everywhere. Yep, and it's looking it's looking very clean at the top. It was very close on the right wall coming out of curve 2, but since then, no major mistakes. A little drift there coming out of Kreisel, but nothing major. Really nice high line there. Almost shot it, but then breaks into the skid. Richard Oelsner still has the top speed from the Kreisel on down. Now, where are we here? 5th fastest at the start. This is looking like a top 6 run. Dvorak just outside the top 6. 600ths behind Hunter Church, who remains in 6th position. So Dominik Dvorak 7th at the line. Well, even on the longest, fastest drivers' tracks, 5th to 15th is always separated by 100th here and 200ths there, and this track is no different, I don't think. All very close. And here we see the transition from 8 to 9. He's going late into 9, and he's really high there. And then it looked like he might shoot it. He was diving off, but then because there was too much pressure left in his sled. He breaks into the skid. You see a lot of driving there to come off. He didn't want to catch the second pressure and go up again.
Hey, you watch the runner tips as they come off the corner. You can just see the tiniest adjustments. Next up for Austria, the first of our two sleds. This is Benny Maier, 36 World Cup start for Benny. His first since we were in Lake Placid. New dad, his wife Elizabeth was calling the skeleton race for us yesterday. Got to meet baby Hendricks for the first time. He's got Marcus Sammer behind her, a weightlifter. And Benny injuring his leg and really struggling to find any speed at the start, I think.
Well, he just did a couple of steps,
yeah,
so his brakeman wouldn't have to push that 270 kilo sled.
Yeah, just anything to get it rolling is a huge advantage. Apart from anything else, it keeps 100 kilos out of the sled.
Yeah, it makes a big difference if you have to push a 170 or 270 kilo sled.
Apparently so, yes. Especially since you're pushing one with somebody else and the other one on your own.
Yeah. Well, I don't think Benny could really put something in the push, but just running alongside it, it's better for the brakeman to get some speed in it.
Definitely. 12th at the start, and Benny driving himself into the top 10 at the moment. And again, despite the injury, that's why he's here. He needs the World Cup points, wants to keep the ranking, wants to keep a position in the World Cup for the Austrian team and for himself potentially.
12th start, 10th at the finish line.
Good drive from Benny, what we've come to expect. And he would like to be fitter and starting better, but what we would like and what happens in life are often diametrically different.
And it's interesting to see the sticker of Bobsleigh Friedrich on his sled. You see taking the high line in Kreisel, and then you just want to very gradually drive it off. No abrupt motions there. Stay on the wipe, and that pushes you. Oh, and there we see he stayed a little bit too long on the wipe, and that's why his back end gets pushed away and skids into curve 8.
So we think this is an ex-Friedrich sled? That's entirely possible, I guess.
Maybe.
Well, we've had Benny Maier for Austria, and next up is the second of our Korean sleds. This is Yun-jin Suk, 20th in the race last year to Yun-jong Won's 10th. His 14th World Cup start, only his 8th as a driver compared to Yun-jong Won's 46. But you kind of get the feeling it's not going to be long before this guy is overtaking Won. Yeah,
he's showing great potential. He's a good starter. He's showing some good lines around the track. 5:35. Not the greatest getaway, but he's been driving really well all season. He finished in front of Yun-jong Won a couple of times already this season, so it's a matter of time until this young guy will be taking over.
Came here a couple of times as a brakeman. He's driven here in last year's World Cup race and Europa Cup the year before. So his track knowledge is relatively limited.
And it's just what I said before with Benny Maier. You don't want any abrupt motion coming out of Kreisel. You just want to have a gradual line there, and he dove it up too soon.
119.1, 119.7 at the bottom, 52.83 run. So Yun-jong Won just outside the top. Yun-jin Suk just outside the top 10.
100 behind Benny Maier.
And his brakeman Jang Ki-kun just getting the sled stopped. 8th two-man race for Jian, 39th two-man race of his career, so he's 8th in the World Cup.
And here you see not as high of a line as we saw from Benny Maier, and then he stays high and he dives it off just too soon, hits the inside wall and has a lot of pressure. He's actually kind of lucky that he doesn't roll over there and then skids going into 8, costs you a lot of speed there.
Yeah, thoughtful expression of Yun-jin Suk.
It is nice to see that after they had the 2018 Olympics that they are still investing in new drivers, and they want to be a part of the sport, not only for their Olympics, but after as well.
Francesco Friedrich, Richard Oelsner, ahead of Romain Heinrich and Michael Vogt. 15 sleds down, 10 to go, only 5 places left in the race. So for the remaining 10 sleds, you've got to bump somebody out pretty much to guarantee that you're going to get a spot. Drazen Silic, Oskars Kibermanis are the bottom 2. Dmitri Popov, 1.07 off the lead, not safe yet either. And the young Russian will definitely have to worry about his teammate Alexey Stulnev. Stulnev didn't race in the World Cup here last year. His best here, in fact, is only a 15th place. And that was in the 15-16 season, 14-15 season rather. So this is not a track that traditionally has played very well for Alexey Stulnev. He might be in danger of making the cut as well.
Well, he has been having a really good foreman season so far.
Ilya Malik, I think both his hands slipped on the cowl then. He landed really heavily.
But 5:26.
Yep.
8 fastest start time. And looking clean at the top of the track. Good control there around 4. Stays long on 5 and has a nice diagonal transition going into 6. A high line, and then that's a perfect exit out of Treichl. Gradual, brings it down, no abrupt movements. Great exit out of 9 there as well.
Haven't consigned him to the danger zone. He's now driving himself towards a top 6 first heat.
He's having a great run.
He is, isn't he? Clearly he heard me. And he is going to be 6th of the line. Wow. That is a good run from Alexey Stulnev.
It's a great job.
Wow, wonder. See now,
5:26.
You were in danger of doing that in the race earlier, shaking off the monkey that is Innsbruck.
Yeah.
And it looks like he might be as well. We had a first-time winner in the women's race. Mariama Yamanka had never won in Innsbruck. She did today.
Okay.
Mind you, Kaylee Humphries had never won, and she was in there swinging with a medal. She still never has.
Okay. Yeah, slips.
I'm not sure. He's just got such enormous meat hook arms, Ilya Malik. He can almost paddle the sled along like a luge start.
But I'm sure he'll have some blue marks on the inside of his arms and shoulders there.
Yeah.
A really nice exit there. Just runs it long and then perfect straightaway.
There's Ilya.
He's a bit surprised with that result. Looks like
do you know what? Pleasantly as well. Take that, absolutely. Xiao of China next up. Took last week off from World Cup because they had something much more important to deal with. It was the National Games of China. Every 4 years, it's a summer and winter sports deal, as important to Chinese athletes as the Olympic gold. And Xiao Yijun won the gold medal. So a massive deal back home in his native land, with Yu Wei behind him.
5:31, a little bit long on curve 1, and a little wave there in the middle of 2.
Young team, 25-year-old driver, 21-year-old brakeman in only his 3rd 2-man race.
Good control there. Middle entrance and long on curve 5 that puts him up nicely for curve 6. Goes late into Treichl, takes a little bit of a lower line there and dives it off. Has a little bit too much pressure, tiny drift going into 8.
Big family weekend back home in China as well. Spring weekend, they reckon over 800 million people travel back home to their families over the spring weekend.
And a very nice looking bottom of the track. 9 to 10 was really great. Good looking labyrinth.
52.59, just a whisker outside the top 10. We saw it in the women's race. Their sleds 7th and 8th. Both having or 8th and 9th, both having a really good run, and Xiao is 600ths out of the top 10.
11th fastest start, 11th at the bottom. Good looking run.
They've got everybody here from the development program.
Here the exit of 9, you see him driving it off and then bringing it back to neutral, taking the tap, and it's a really nice, like it's a drift, but no, it doesn't cost you any speed. Nice and early into 10, high line, and then diving it off to take all the speed you can.
Well, there's his brakeman at the back. Yu Wei, happy with that. Next up for Great Britain, Brad Hall with Greg Cackett, 29-year-old driver, 30-year-old brakeman. Brad off his best ever 2-man World Cup result, 4th place in La Plagne last weekend. Best here, tied for 8th last year with Romain Heinrich in the two-man race. And this is Brad's 22nd World Cup start. Only the 3rd in a two-man, though, for his brakeman, Greg Cackett.
Okay.
Well, they're now the only British sled in the race, 5:21. Misha McNeil didn't start the women's race because she's got the flu. And we won't see Lamindine, his sled disqualified already.
And a 5:21, 8 fastest start time.
And that's one of the big things in their armory, isn't it? You know, these two guys do get away very quickly. The four-man does as well.
Yeah, and their material has been running really nice. They've been getting some really good speeds. Also in training, had really high speed.
2100s off. This is a top 4 run. Really nice stuff. Well, Romain Heinrich, 3rd place. That's where Brad was, tied with Romain last year. Can he get to 3rd place? He's zooming down the track, closing in on the Frenchman. It's going to be very close, very close.
Wow.
3rd place at the line. 600s ahead of Romain Heinrich.
Great run there.
And don't forget, Brad Hall, self-funded. He does not have a coach here. Tom Delahunty, who works with the Dutch, is also helping out with the coaching. But Sean Olsen, who's kind of the motivator for the team, still in the military, not here, and it wasn't in the plan last week. So that's a great confidence-boosting run. And a big start as well.
Here we have the lower labyrinths. Oh no, that's 5 to 6. A little bit late going in there. And then his back is on the end of the wipe a little bit too long, and that's why he breaks into the tiny skid, but still got amazing speeds down the track though.
Well, 4th in La Plagne and at the moment in 3rd place. Well, the younger drivers are definitely having a bit of a day of it this morning or this afternoon. What can this man produce? Ralfs Berzins of Latvia, just 22 years old. Started his World Cup career in Sigulda, his home track at the beginning of last season. He's done every race since. You can see the sweeping going on down the track, and as ever, lots of Latvian fans. Yesterday's skeleton race winner, Martin Stukurs, claiming his 11th straight win in Innsbruck, including the 2016 Worlds, and paying tribute to, he said, quote, all the crazy Latvians who come out and cheer for us every week wherever we go.
They love these sports.
Yeah.
It will be a big weekend when we get there for a World Cup in Sigulda. A lot of fans will come out to cheer them on.
Because then it won't be the start of the season, it'll be the end of the World Cup season. We'll have had 2 months to build up to it. See what these guys can produce. 16th last year.
Running it very long, but
wow,
just avoids the wall. 5:14, wow.
That equals Friedrich's start.
Well, that happens when you run it very long. You get great starts. But that's a bit of a risk to take, though. He would just avoided a skid and a hit before going into one.
10th World Cup start for the driver, Ralfs Berzins. 12th for Duff Springs, his brakeman.
And a little drift going into Kreisel.
Still a top 4 run.
Nice height there. Good looking exit. Just takes a hit before going into 10. Good height. A little bit long there. Late height in 11.
Losing a little bit of ground, dropping out of the top 6 in terms of pace. And just a little worried that the cloud is coming down so low. Then if visibility really disappears after the end of this run, we might get to the stage where it's a 1-run race.
He's just not on the rubber, I think.
Yeah, he's just on the ice still. And that might be a 10 grand difference.
Yeah.
You know, it really could be.
And here, out of 6, we've seen a lot of sleds do that. If your back end gets on the wipe a little bit too long, it just pushes you into that skid. And here, a late tap out of curve 9 on the straightaway. Middle entrance going into curve 10. Out of that start.
Yeah, not a bad start. 5:14, Ralfs Berzins.
Wow.
And Dove Springs, fastest sled, equal fastest sled away from the start. We've seen one Swiss driver. Here is our second. Timo Röhne with a multinational lineup in this crew because newly confirmed Olympic bronze medalist from John Jackson's British team in Sochi, Joel Feron, finally gets to make his World Cup debut in a Swiss uniform. He was due to earlier in the season, but injury put that to a halt. His last World Cup race, January 2018, with Brad Hall. Okay. Now he starts with Timo Röhne.
Oh, drifts 526,
whoa,
and that's a lot of speed gone away.
Wow, that was the most dramatic first corner I think I've seen in years here.
And really late going into 4 there as well, and he lost so much speed already 5,800 behind. And now the fog is really coming down. This is gonna affect the track with frost.
Yeah. Because refrigeration is on, the ice isn't just normal ice, it's artificially cooled, and it does frost up a little. It makes it sticky like when you touch your hand on your freezer.
Hits and skids there as well. Nice exit of 10.
And I do worry about the visibility.
Oh, yeah.
I think we'll get through this run, but if the fog doesn't lift or the cloud doesn't lift, I'm not sure we'll get another. 53.23, we'll have to wait and see. I mean, it was snowing hard at the end of the women's race. By the time I'd finished the interviews, it had stopped totally. So the weather changes a lot in the winter.
18th place so far, but he's going to have trouble to make the cut.
Yeah,
and he's
absolutely furious.
So
what went wrong?
Well, he ran quite far, and you can see him coming out of the grooves when he's still loading, so he doesn't have his hands on the D-rings yet. And then with Joel running it very long too, it drifts, and it's hard to control there.
Yeah.
You can see him pointing into curve 1 now, and it just takes a lot of driving there to come around.
Just as well there's no audio on the slow-mo. I'm sure there was a lot of Swiss profanity going on there. That's really tough for Timo Röhne and Joel Feron. Okay, so 20 sleds, and it is Drazen Silic, Oskars Kibermanis, and Timo Röhne. They're the bottom 3. They're the danger zone. Now, in his 42nd World Cup start, Ivo de Bruin has got the potential to make it into the field. 15th here last year. He's got Dennis Vanker behind him.
He's been driving his new Eurotech sled all season. Been testing out a lot of equipment. 5:33.
Okay, well that was fraction behind Xiao Yijun of China at the start, and Xiao is currently lying in 13th, so a top 15 run is definitely possible for Ivo.
A very clean looking top part of the track. And can't avoid that little drift and hit there before going into Kreisel. We've seen so many sleds do it. Nice exit there.
Slipping a bit behind Yun-jin Suk into 16th place. Still in the race, so this is going to fire out Croatia's Drazen Silic.
Late going into 12, but good control.
16th place still on the splits. This should see him in the race. 17th, it's a little closer to the danger zone than he would like. And 2 or 3 little skiddy taps. Well, there's a lot to tidy up for the second heat, which is good news.
He's only 700ths out of 14th place.
Yeah.
A tight group there.
It is going to be super tight, isn't it? And he's 1700ths ahead of Dmitri Popov, so there's plenty of room behind him for others to fall into.
He comes out of 6th with a little bit too much pressure, and that brings him to the right side of the screen, to the left side of the track, and takes the hit and tap. High there at the exit of 9. He comes down and has a little bit too much pressure, which keeps him up again, and then takes the hit, but no skid going into 10.
Long shots on the camera make it look a little foggier than it is, so hopefully we should have no major dramas. Francesco Friedrich leads from Richard Oelsner and Brad Hall, who probably wouldn't mind the race being called off at the end of the run. Okay, so 21 sleds down, and we have 4 to go to try and make it into the race. Our 22nd starter is Li Chunjian of China, his 2nd World Cup start. Raced here in Europa Cup in January of 2019. Chateau, his brakeman, just 21 years old, third start in the two-man World Cup, his first time racing in World Cup outside North America as well. The Chinese program based in the North American tracks, Calgary formerly, but Salt Lake, Lake Placid, Whistler, those are the tracks they really know.
Well, before they started racing on America's Cup and World Cup, they've been to a lot of tracks. They had a lot of training time on different tracks, so they are familiar with a lot of the European tracks as well.
Yeah. Well, Lee only did the second World Cup weekend race of the weekend in Lake Placid.
5:25, and you could see the runners move when he got in, so I'm pretty sure he got caught with his foot on the steering, getting into his sled.
Yeah, you have to slip your feet around the bungee straps that are in the center holding the D-rings ready for your hands.
Yep, most of the pilots, when they jump in, they just have a touchdown on the seat or just in front of the seat, and then they put their feet forward around the steering handles. Some of the drivers can do it in one move, which is obviously quicker, but it's tricky to get around.
Absolutely.
A little late there.
In the race, though, 10th fastest start, in 14th at the moment, 15th at the line maybe, 14th at the line, ahead of Benny Maier of Austria by 13 hundredths, and a 10th behind his teammate Xiao Yujun. So nice battle within the battle between the two Chinese drivers. Xiao with, double the World Cup experience in his fourth race compared to the second for Lee.
Well, Lee is the fastest starter, but Xiao outdrove him.
With a tiny bit more ice experience,
And here you can see the runners moving while he's still getting in, so that's his foot touching the steering.
Either that or some momentum that he's left in the sled as he leaps in. Yeah, either way, they'd run out of drive lines and he wasn't controlling the sled.
And here the exit of 9. Takes it off a little bit too abrupt, hits the left wall, and then a tiny skid going into 10. But he's in the race.
Yeah, there's Lee and Wu, his brakeman. No Lamin Dean, so 3 sleds to go. This is Markus Treichl, the least orthodox starting technique you've ever seen. He's got a broken left foot, that's the reason for that. And a World Cup debutant behind him is Gregor Glaboniat. And so again, Markus, like Benny, trying desperately to reduce the weight of the sled as much as he can. And unfortunately, Gregor just comes in like a big sack of potatoes, but Markus held the skid.
567. And that just shows how impressive Mattis Miknis of Oskars Kibermanis team was. He pushed a 565 by himself with someone inside the sled.
Yeah.
Tiny drift there too, but he avoids the wall.
Well, Kibermanis not in the race now. He was bumped out by Lee of China. So on the bubble is Timo Rona.
Great looking lines, Kreisel 8-9.
But Treichl needs to find some speed. 23rd at the start, still 22nd at the moment. He's not going to make it in either, unless he finds the Austrian wormhole. No, doesn't. 53.39. So 3/10 slower than Lee of China. And he is behind Kibermanis and ahead of Silic.
Great looking run though. You can see this is his home track and he knows how to drive it, but it's so hard being injured, and having a slow start on this track is just going to kill you.
11th place last year, 22nd this year. When we come back to it next season, we'll try and remember why.
Yeah.
The database needs to have these details on. Did a skateboard start because of a broken foot?
This is a great looking exit. Goes a little bit late into curve 10, but has a good height there and dives it off.
Well, Markus Treichl's having trouble walking, never mind anything else with that broken foot. 2 to go, Ryo Shiohara of Japan, his two-man World Cup debut last week in La Plagne. And he has got Kenji Murakami behind him. His 8th two-man race for Kenji, only his 2nd in the World Cup. He did La Plagne as well. And Shiohara did come here last year in Europa Cup. And these guys, first time we've had a Japanese sled in the men's field for a number of years, and they are absolutely committed to this. Long load from Murakami behind him.
Yeah, and he's sitting really high. You can still see a lot of the brakeman's shoulders there, and that's aerodynamically, that's not what you want. You want the brakeman to be very low in the sled.
And channeling her inner John Morgan there. Let's look at the runner tips as well. Yeah, get in, get down. The get down bit is the bit that's missing at the back there, but you're absolutely right.
Well, when we look at it at videos as well, when we're looking in the training at the driving lines, we regularly look at the brakeman's position, because this makes a difference during the run.
Yep.
Ooh, really high peak there, and dives it out, late entrance there, and a lot of steering going on to control in the labyrinths.
But at the moment, he's in the race, and Timo Rohner of Switzerland is out. He's 19th, but he's in at the moment, and one sled to go. That's it. He'll make the race. So 52.95 for Ryo Shiohara. He is in. Timo Rohner is out. And on the bubble is Dmitri Popov. I need to get some new teeth for later. So Shiohara is in, and kind of like Hunter Church, you know, everything is almost a new experience to him this year, isn't it?
Yeah, he's learning a lot, but yeah, I can't help to see this brakeman is up so high. I'm sorry.
Watching the runners as he double checks there off the corner. You're just looking at the shoulders.
But you could see it in the slow-mo out of exit 9. He's just really high up there. And I'm pretty sure he's gonna come up to me next race and like, don't call me out on like that.
Yeah, he's there.
People have been doing it.
He's there to be seen.
I need to be careful to what I'm saying.
Final starter of the first of our 2 heats is Nico Walther. 40th World Cup start for him. First World Cup start for Malte Schwenzfeier. Even for German speakers, that's a little bit of a mouthful. He's an American football player who started last season. This is only his 5th ever 2-man race outside of German selections, championships and whatever. Nico, 2 wins, 7 podiums in the World Cup in 2-man. Olympic silver medalist, World Championship bronze medalist from last year. But his best race here was on his debut in the 14-15 season when he finished 4th.
Oh, okay.
However, he's become an even better 2-man driver since then. Let's see if he can find the pace today. They're going to need to start in the teens though, aren't they? Maybe that's why Malta is on the back. Young boy gets in. Look, it's like a hole in the floor in the sled. He vanishes.
5:26. That's literally get in, get down.
Yeah.
It took a long time to get the push bar down, though, around curve 1.
Well, that was the 11th fastest start. He's a quarter second back on the leaders. Let's see how far up the order he can get in the remaining 1,150 meters after the start.
Great looking line so far. Came out of 6th. Almost went into the drift, but corrected it well, and is having really good speed there.
Yep, 9th fastest at the moment, or 9th place at the moment. 2nd fastest sled to Richard Oelsner.
A little early there, pushed away in late height, but a good control in 12.
Not as loose as Friedrich, top 6. This could be challenging for a medal.
Wow.
5th place, 52.29. That is a
the team is happy.
Yeah, big run from Francesco Friedrich.
Nico Walther.
I beg your pardon for Nico Walther, and I was concentrating on Malte Schwenzfeier, his brakeman.
Okay. Well, he's tied with Michael Vogt in 5th place.
Yes.
Only 100 behind Romain Heinrich.
Yep, and only 700s out of the medals. Wow, that's a big run from Nico Walther.
In and down, and then first driving it around 1. He's still struggling to get the push bar down. Well, just avoids the wall. Just
taps the little tab there when he knows he's got control of the sled. Good run from Nico. Missed the first part of the season in Lake Placid with injury, but his teammate didn't. Francesco Friedrich and Torsten Margis, 5 straight wins on this track. Last man to win here was Stephen Holcomb before the avalanche of Friedrich victories. And he's looking hard to beat because he's got a lot to tidy up at the bottom of the run.
Yeah, he made a mistake in curve 4 and then made a mistake coming out of curve 10, which made it a little swoopy labyrinth. So if he'll clean it up, he'll be very, very hard to beat.
But he could make more mistakes, as we've seen before.
Fastest start and a good run. It's always going to be hard to beat him.
German 1-2, Francesco Friedrich and Richard Oelsner ahead of Brad Hall, Romain Heinrich and Nico Walther and Michel Vogt. Yun-jong 1 might not be out. Maybe Alexey. I mean, look how close it is. 100th, 200s, 300s, 100th, 300s. It's ridiculous. We saw this last week in La Plania, a much longer, very different nature track, and we said then, where are we? Eagles? Well, this is why we said that, because this is what Innsbruck does. Ryo Shiohara makes it in, but Dmitri Popov and the rest do not get a second run. The sleds will be back at 3:30 local, 14:30 Greenwich Mean Time. Join Anne van Nieuwenhuis, me, Martin Haven, the IBSF TV crew for the second and deciding run in our 4th two-man race of the season. Till then, it's Auf Wiedersehen from Innsbruck.